Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I am bringing us our full moon forecast for this coming Thursday. So, January 28th at 16 a.m. here in Hawaii, we're going to have the moon and the sun across from each other. And that, of course, means that the moon's going to be at its fullest point the night before on Wednesday. Our full moons are really these juncture points, these halfway points in our new moon cycle that show us what we haven't been accessing, the energy we haven't been accessing. So the new moon, the moon and the sun are together and they set off a powerful cycle, a theme for the month. And then we have the full moon halfway through that's kind of like, whatever we've been doing over here across the way, there's this totally other way of doing things, and we don't want to completely ignore that because the two are sort of related, or not sort of related. They are very much related. The axis is related. So we have, though, the past many months, since the Virgo cycle, we have had our new moons happening in the final degrees, in the 29 degrees of the sign, which means that the sun has been in the sign the whole time before the new moon sets off the cycle. And the sun being there obviously brings quite a lot of energy to that area of life, to that sign, to that house in your chart. So our new moon cycles are still new moon cycles. They're still setting off a cycle of that energy, but it's coming on the heels of having already been in that space for a long time. And in this particular case with Capricorn, we have had much more than the sun there, right? We've had Jupiter and Saturn there since December. Well, Saturn's been there since last January, since January 2020, and Jupiter's actually been there since the end of November. They came together in December in the Great Conjunction. So I guess what I mean by that is everybody knows that they came together there. And I guess some people believe that that was at the beginning of Aquarius, but in terms of where it actually is in the sky, it's very much in Capricorn. And even Pluto, the outer planet, joined in at the beginning of this year into Capricorn as well. And we've had, Mercury and Sun there for a couple of weeks. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can look at the chart together. So here we are, January 28th at 9:16 a.m. And we have these four planets. So you can see Venus has just moved in and Mercury has just moved out. And now Mercury's in Saturn's other sign of Aquarius. So I'll talk about Venus and Mercury in a minute, but let's start with what is the energy that we are countering or that we're exploring the opposite of. And that is Capricorn. And Capricorn is really, it's an earth sign. It's practical. It needs actual efforts in the physical world to take place in a direction, in a plan, and there's a goal with Capricorn. We're wanting things to get somewhere and to have an end result. And the end result is survival. So ultimately, Capricorn, being ruled by Saturn, has this focus on survival. We want to live. We want to make it through another day, and we want to make it through many more days. And we also want that longevity to take place for, maybe our family or our immediate close relatives. So the function of Saturn coming from, this sort of fearful place, or this place of have to and what has to be done, and really in a way sucking the joy out of things, sucking the joy out of life and making it all about what needs to be done, what has to be done, what will keep us alive, and this sort of long-term vision of what that looks like. This is because Saturn is about time. Saturn rules time. And the time we have on Earth is limited, meaning we are facing death. From the moment we're born, we are moving in the direction of death, and it can happen at any point. So Saturn brings that awareness very close to us. And the planet Saturn is here, but also all these planets in Saturn's sign of Capricorn are also feeling that energy of, we have a limited amount of time here on Earth. We have to get certain things done in order to stay safe for that limited amount of time we have left on the world. We'd like to extend that time, to the we don't want it to be tomorrow that we die. We want to live, longer than that. And then this idea of aging, of getting old, which is a reminder that we're going to die at some point. And having all these planets here, for sure, we have, especially with the sun and Saturn being joined, we get a lot of dehydration, a lot of drying energy. Our bones could be more, crackly, crickety. Our cartilage is stiffer, our joints are stiffer, and we're more likely to injure our back or our knees or all these different body parts. The signs of aging come up for us. And the feeling of this sort of, drying all the moisture out. And the moisture is the vitality, the youth, and the abundance of life. Water is life. And this drying of decaying is when the moisture is being sucked out and taken away from us. So we need to then dip in the cool waters of, say, Cancer across the way, where we have this nurturing quality, this nourishing quality, this replenishing quality. And especially for our moon is in her home state here. This is where she feels the most at home, because it's Cancer and it's her own sign. Just like Saturn feels really at home here in Capricorn. Saturn likes being in his own home. It's like, yes, things have to be done. Death is imminent. And, everyone should be working hard and being responsible. That's like Saturn's thing. Well, the moon's thing is connecting and, unconditionally loving and feeling all the different emotions and feelings that need to be felt and bouncing off of whatever energy is around. And so this is a reminder to us that we need to nourish and nurture ourselves. We need to replenish our vital energy through self-care, and also through caring for others, right? Also through having this more nurturing quality in our relationships, more loving quality in our engagements with people. Because if everything we're doing is just this sort of nuts and bolts transactional, work towards not dying, then we're already dying. You know what I mean? At that point, we've lost the luster of life and the part of it that feels very enjoyable to us. Cancer is the sign of the mother. And in the first part of Cancer, which is a shared nakshatra with Gemini, it's called Purnavasu. And we see the birth of the Earth Mother happens here, the birth of Aditi. In Pushya, the second one, this is the nourisher. This is the one who feeds the baby with the breast, with the milk. And it's also a very spiritual star. We see that Jupiter is exalted here in Pushya, where we're nurturing our spiritual self, where we're feeding our soul, not just our body. And in turn, we're able to feel safe for a completely different reason than we feel safe over here in Capricorn. We feel safe here out of faith. Just like a baby is born and they are in the belly, right? And they're not really thinking about anything because their mind isn't working in that way, but they're safe. They're in a belly and they're being fed all the time when they need it. And you can imagine why, when somebody's taking drugs or in a very horrible work situation or is, has all this other stuff going on during their pregnancy, even maybe some of the recommended normal things that they do to pregnant women can be very harsh to the baby, because the baby is literally just living in this, this bubble of safety. And so anything that's making them feel unsafe, anything that feels is just horrendous. They can't think about it and reason about it. It's just a shock to their system, and a breaking of one of those bonds of complete and total faith and safety that they have. Well, that's going to happen to us. There's things we can't control, and there's things we can. But no matter what, even if you do everything in the most loving, nurturing, natural way possible, at some point your child is going to experience some break in their faith, some break in their bond and their complete and total trust that they have. We just hope we can push that point to further down the line. So then they're born, and hopefully they go right on the mother's breast, right on, Pushya is literally represented by the cow udders or the breast, so they can start feeding, immediately being fed. And again, they feel safe. It's like, oh, I came out. It's crazy. I'm in the world. Oh, here's the heartbeat. Here's that heartbeat I'm used to. Here's that, breast that I knew was coming my way. Here's that milk. And they feel safe again. They feel completely safe. Mind you, the infant is literally the most vulnerable thing there is. There's nothing more vulnerable than a baby, right? And even the mother, I mean, the mother will do anything she can and fight and try to keep the baby safe, but the mother's extremely vulnerable. As soon as you have a baby, you become extraordinarily vulnerable in a way you've never been before. And anyone who is a mother, even a father, can understand that. But especially a mother, it puts you in your state of highest vulnerability, especially when the baby's in your belly. But then even more so when it comes out, because you have this quality of this thing you love so much is now outside of you. And now you can't even fully protect it. It's like, you don't just have to worry about keeping yourself safe. You have to keep this entity safe that can detach from you. But that security and that safety that we feel when things are going well and when this process is working within its continuum, is the ultimate faith and the ultimate security and safety. And we see Jupiter being across here. It's also the ultimate love and devotion, which is the highest connection we can have with spirit, is that one of utter faith and devotion. So then we see that Jupiter over here in Capricorn is the opposite of that. It's where we feel that our faith is coming from something outside of us, and that these are, forces that we must control and do something with and be responsible and take care. Yes. Which is true. I mean, like I said, the mother is so vulnerable. That's why we need other people, a village, a father, or something, to be somehow keeping that precious life safe, because the mother can really only focus on that one thing. So we need, a structure, a home, something to keep them safe, ideally a village, ideally a whole bunch of people keeping them safe, keeping them fed, keeping them warm, keeping them clothed, keeping them, whatever the needs are being met. So that responsibility is the other necessary end of the peace. You can't have the peace without the responsibility being taken care of. And you can't have it, there's no reason for the responsibility, I would say. There's no reason to have all this stuff taken care of and this responsibility if you're not going to ever feel that peace, if you're not going to ever feel that connectivity and that absolute love and peace. Then for what are you even protecting? What are you protecting if not a home, if not a mother, if not life? Then what is it you're even worried about losing? And so this is how the natural fourth house Cancer and Capricorn are opposite each other. Now, Jupiter is just the one example because it happens to be debilitated here and exalted here. So you see that it's, our faith, our beliefs, our ideals do not operate that well when they're working under this have to paradigm of we're going to die if we don't believe this thing. When the beliefs are presented to us in a cold, harsh reality, facts, figures, and death kind of a setup, it's not very inspirational, and it's not, it doesn't lead us closer to, say, God. It doesn't lead us closer to source or to what we're trying to connect to. It leads us more down a fear path, and it can be, anything from sort of hoarding money or hoarding things that you think you need to very restrictive and stern ideological beliefs. Jupiter has joined all these other planets too, and especially you can see the sun is very close to Jupiter right now. So on top of being in Saturn's constrictive sign of Capricorn, Jupiter's also being combust. It's also combust, meaning it's close to the sun. So we have a quality of feeling like our belief systems or our ideals are being like put aside or put in the dark, and the sun is just blazing its bright light over that. It's actually like so bright and so hot that when a planet is really close to it, we have this experience of that planet's energy being like ignored by the rest of by everyone else, or being our sense, like my beliefs are not being heard or not being recognized. The light isn't shining on my beliefs, it's hiding my beliefs. And so then in that case, I feel very sensitive about it. It feels very sensitive to me. And any little thing kind of can set you off on that, and be like, oh no, that's not my beliefs, or that is my beliefs. Whatever's being said in a very neutral setting can feel like a direct attack on your own ideology, or your own systems that you fall into. So it brings a heightened sensitivity to whatever planet is being being combust, or is combust. Being combust isn't really the right. And Saturn is also very close to the sun. Saturn's our sense of responsibility. It's our sense of hard work. It's our sense of fear. And it's, like I said, that sense of time, really. That's the pressure from Saturn comes from the time. There's limited time, and we know that. And so that limited time is like on our shoulder, constantly reminding us, you're going to get old, you're going to die, you need to finish this now. If you want to survive, this is what needs to happen. And so that part of Saturn is also being sort of hidden by the sun, or not shown light on. And as a result, we might feel like our hard work or our efforts are not recognized. We might feel like we're just these little, minions that are doing whatever we need to do in the background, and none of it is being appreciated. And even our fear is not being appreciated. Even our fear is being overlooked. Even the things that were being, celebrated and recognized before are now being overlooked. I had to put all these shades up because the sun kept shining in my eyes, but now it's getting kind of dark. So I'll try to see. I'm being hidden. This combust energy is making me feel hidden. I have to find some light. So those two planets, Saturn and Jupiter, now have the sun blazing forward. The sun in Capricorn has somewhat of a similar quality to Jupiter, in the sense that it's not in its best dignity here. It's not in its highest intelligence. The sun wants to shine bright, wants to connect to source. It wants to be a leader. It's where we want to really stand tall and connected and lead from that place. And in Capricorn, there's this humility that comes with Saturn. It's intrinsic and natural when you think about the qualities of knowing you're going to die and all this. It's very humbling. It's very humbling. Capricorn and Saturn energy also brings up things like health problems and old age, like I said, and also poverty, being poor. So there's this humble sort of working class quality here that the sun is not about. The sun wants to be king. The sun is happy over here in Leo, in his own sign of the king. And this idea of being like a Shrudra, or a working class manual laborer is not where we feel in our most power, where we feel like we're standing the tallest. And so the sun is feeling dampered in this position anyway. And Jupiter and the sun, especially the sun, sort of have to do with government. And, the sun is the king or the president, and it's the government, and it's this quality of governance. And Jupiter can have to do with sort of the laws, or the courts and things like that. So we can see how, we've been talking about this for a while with Jupiter, Saturn, how there's these sort of more stricter policies that come in and all this stuff. And in this moment, what we have is the fear-based policies are actually in some ways being lifted in this moment. They're in an attempt, I don't know exactly why, but the news that I've seen is showing that several places, including California, which has been one of the places that has the most, sort of raging numbers of COVID, are lifting the stay-at-home orders and even allowing people to dine in restaurants again and things like that. So that would be the fear being eclipsed by the sun, right? By the power, and the strict policies being also eclipsed isn't the right word, but that this combust energy where they're super close to the sun. But we can also see how there's still that element of fear in Washington, right? There's all these troops that are guarding the Capitol, the White House, I don't know, just on the streets of Washington. I'm not sure I have the best picture of exactly, where all these people are, except for I saw that they were in garages and sleeping on the floor and stuff like that. So there's this element of fear that is still playing part, and it's coming from the governance as well, but it's shadowing the other kinds of fear, the fears of the working class people, or the fears of the bricklayers, the people who are actually doing the work on the ground floor, the essential workers, we could call them. And then the Jupiter policies and ideology that people have been, embracing, but also given since the beginning of this whole pandemic last year. This ideology that is very much steeped in the fear of death. And Saturn is there, so it's appropriate fear in many ways, but it's now being sort of pushed down too. And people are, what I've seen from people who are living in these places like California or Los Angeles, where they've had these really strict policies, is kind of like, well, why is this being lifted right now when the numbers are maybe even the same or higher than they were a month ago? And so there's this quality of not being listened to or not being heard on those fronts. Again, we go back to the moon. One of the reasons that this can be coming up at this time is because the idea and the need to connect and nourish oneself, even through things like, self-care, now all the nail salons or the massage clinics or all those different things might be open. Maybe you can go out to eat with a friend, you can connect again. Connection is going to take a little moment on the stage and remind us that that whatever we're preserving of life is not worth it if there's nothing loving and nurturing that we're even supporting. If we don't have something that's giving us that feeling of peace, then whatever we're protecting is not worth protecting if it's not making us feel peace within. And that's really what this, opposing full moon energy can offer us. And of course, the moon is taking the hit of all of these planets staring at, especially Jupiter, because it's right next to the sun, but also Saturn. Venus is pretty far off still at this point. But we can see that Venus will be moving into conjunction with Saturn and will be moving into conjunction with Jupiter. The sun moves really fast also, so the sun will be ahead of Venus and they won't be in exact conjunction. But this is bringing a different quality to our relationships. Just the last video I did, I was talking about how we have, a lot of ideological relationships based in similar ideology, or even feeling like in order to maintain our friendships, we need to sort of twist or tweak our ideologies a little bit so that we can all get along and we can all be friendly and all these different things. Well, now we see Venus here in Capricorn, and it brings a quality of commitment to relationships. It brings a quality of working together and braving and the hardships, really being willing to get through what's hard, because the long-term goal is survival. It's again, the survival of the relationship, the survival of your happiness. But again, it can be a little bit of a downer on the happiness and on the fun, because Capricorn's not particularly fun. Once Venus gets into, conjunction with Saturn, that part will really ramp up. We'll feel a lot more of commitment, and also the sort of the hard work of having to be in relationships and how much effort it is. And then when it gets in conjunction with Jupiter, we'll see a little bit more of that in, the inspiration and ideals that bring people together, but also the want and desire to connect, having us maybe give a little bit on our ideals, maybe not needing to stand so hard in your principles, because, if you want to talk to this person, you might need to give a little bit. You might need to listen to them a little bit. Well, what's really going to be making that listening and everything kind of happen a little more, and I think I just need to go 2 days here. Yep. On January 30th, we're going to see Mercury begin its retrograde action. And so this is just 2 days after our full moon, and it's just barely stepped in Aquarius. So Mercury is bringing this quality of, once it moves into Aquarius, there's this idea of like new thinking, new thoughts, new ideas. It can definitely have to do with technology and stuff like that. Mercury is where we're using our intellect in the way of learning new things and in the way of categorizing what already is. If you look at the 2 signs of Gemini and Virgo and what they represent, Mercury is where we communicate with other people and where we also take in information. And so in Aquarius, there's this quality of the new frontier and wanting things to be different, and how can we rearrange things, and how can we come up with new ideas and new ways of doing things. And it actually functions quite well in Aquarius for that reason, because it's a planet that operates in the intellect anyway. It operates into the airy realm that Aquarius exists in, and it has this capacity to really see the new horizon and see what's possible. But of course, it's going retrograde right away, so it's not going to be there very long. And it's also going to be immediately, even upon entering, there's a stationary quality to it. There's a quality of stuck, like we're stuck in this information. And now we're going to start to roll backwards. And when we see that going back into Capricorn, which shouldn't take too long, let's see, on the 4th, we see it go back into Capricorn. It's going to be revisiting those old ideas. So what we're needing to do is reflect upon everything that we've thought, all the ideas we've come up with, all the language we've been using, all the communication we've been having. All of these different things have been formed from a Capricorn place in the last few weeks. And now we're going to run back over old ground and rethink those things, rehave those conversations that we already had, and hopefully design them in a new way that, that listens, that actually takes into account other opinions or other feelings or other needs. And we'll from there be able to go back into Aquarius, really able to take on the new frontiers or the new ideas and the new policies, the new way of communication, with a little bit more under our belt of information that we've actually listened, that we've actually taken that time to do that. Now, Mercury was in the nakshatra of Shravana. Last time I did this, I remember that. And I was thinking that would help us listen, because Shravana is where we're listening, even though it's in Capricorn. It's where we're open to listening. But really, more than anything, it's where we're listening deeper. It's where we're listening beneath the surface to what is more fundamental and perhaps even more soul searching. Well, when Mercury goes back into that nakshatra, it will be, let's see how far back it will go, because it's going to be, no, wait, I'm going to go ahead a week. So at least by the 13th. So by that new moon that we have on the 11th, we will have Mercury in Shravana. We'll see it back there, but retrograde. So perhaps that's a chance to really listen, because we have a tendency to want to talk. We have a tendency to want to speak and to put our own opinions out there. Even when we're listening to people, often we have our own thing we're trying to say. And it can be very hard to listen to anything more than just the surface of something, or whatever the immediate trigger is, whatever the thing is that hits some place in our brain where we're like, oh, that, I know what that is. I know what that is, and I don't like that. Or I know what that is, and I do like that. And that's a lot of what we do with it, which is very black and white. And it's not, it's not actually that intelligent. And it really has more to do with this logical part of us that Mars brings up, where we're right and wrong. Everything is this or that, this or that, this, that. And we need to move out of that. We need to move out of that polarity, because it's actually quite literally unintelligent. It doesn't get us anywhere, because it limits everything, and it also groups everything together. So it limits information that you're willing to even take in, and also that you're willing to put out. But it also puts an element of quick categorization, like if you've ever done laundry and you're trying to figure out, you're separating your whites and your darks, and then you got something that's like pink and it's not a white and it's not a dark, or you want to wash it in cold water and the darks are the ones that go in cold, but you don't want it to get the dyes. It's like this quality of like, that doesn't describe a colorful load of laundry isn't either whites or darks. That's not what laundry looks like. So that's not what thoughts look like either. And that's not what ideas look like. That's not what beliefs look like. That's not what facts look like. That's not what any of this looks like. It's not that clean and easy as we might want it to be. And in Capricorn, there's a quality of like, well, there might be some casualties, there might be some casualties in I'm talking about this from the perspective of thought, like, yep, but the most important thing is survival. So this is going over here. This is going over here. The only thing that matters is that this is what's communicated, or that this, that safety, security, and survival are the primary functions. And when we go through it in a retrograde fashion, I think we might rethink some of that and realize that there is more to it, to the conversation, and there needs to be more to the conversation, because we can't take out quality of life, as we're being reminded. We can't take out quality of life. That makes it pointless to protect anything if there's nothing worth protecting. And so we have that, and of course we have this Mars still here in Aries, as I just sort of touched on quickly, which is a very it can be a militant Mars in many ways, especially if the direction is coming from these planets of Jupiter, Sun. Right now, we do have Moon, Saturn, Mars, all in their own sign. This indicates high intelligence there. It indicates we have the courage. It indicates we have the fire to take action. The problem with Mars is that its orders come from somewhere else. Mars is not the diviner. It's not the one who has ideals or beliefs to stand up for. It's not the one who's connected to source and getting the download of what needs to happen to protect the rest of the kingdom. Mars just does what Mars is told. It's literally like the army or the general of the army, where it's just like, these are the orders, go do it. And there isn't that reckoning of deciding for oneself what you're fighting, what you're arguing. That stuff comes from Jupiter and the Sun, which is here in Capricorn. So the directive from the top down is coming from this fearful survival based plane. And I don't mean to make Capricorn sound like this horrible place. I have my ruling planet in Capricorn. It's very functional, and it's very it gets things done. And it has a lot of quality of commitment, humility, hard work. There's a lot of wonderful qualities to Capricorn energy. It's just that when you have any sign that has this many planets in it, there's an overload of energy in that area, and that energy is not spread out as much. And so while we see Saturn's giving us that detachment from death, perhaps like that fundamental detachment of just like, well, one day we will die, we will die. And so be it. The moon in her own sign is saying, and in the meantime, high faith, high security really comes. The most secure we'll ever feel will be in the arms of our mother being breastfed. We will, a million walls and however many feet high and all these soldiers and all these things, we'll never feel safe. You never feel safe if you have to keep building up your security. You feel safe by surrendering. You feel safe by surrendering into the arms of the mother and trusting, having faith that you'll be fed, having faith that you'll be nurtured. That's how you feel safe. So that's what this polarity is bringing up for us. Mars is saying, fight the fight, fight whatever's in front of you, fight what you need to fight. And the ideology, by the way, it's very easy to see it on a bigger scale, like, okay, this is what's happening in America right now, or maybe in your country, this is what's happening. But we also have to understand that this is everybody. We're all having this experience. So everyone from the president of the United States to the former president of the United States, to me, to you, to some 85-year-old woman in Italy, to some 9-year-old child in Thailand, to whatever these different places we are, whatever we're dealing with, whatever we believe, whatever our ideologies are, they're fear-based right now. So it's not about, well, mine is right and that person's fear-based, no, they're all fear-based. The ones that are labeled conspiracy theories and the ones that are labeled as mainstream ideology, whatever. It's all fear-based. It's not a matter of, you know, one side being like this and one side. We all experience this energy. The level to which we have intelligence within the process has more to do with our own natal chart. It has to do with, first of all, what house this is for you. What house is Capricorn for you? And if you don't know that yet, then you should sign up for my email list. It's, you know, there'll be a link in the comments at the bottom, but it's www.radhahomeyoga.com. And they'll immediately, you'll get a free report that will show you where Jupiter and Capricorn is for you. And of course, at this point, because I made this report many moons ago, you know, you'll also be seeing where the Sun, Saturn, and Venus are in your chart. That shows where all this energy is concentrated for you. And for, you know, I'm a Taurus rising, it's my 9th house of higher beliefs, teachings, and me as a teacher. So it's not that bad to have that energy concentrated there. It doesn't feel that bad to me. It feels somewhat productive or somewhat enlightening. But for, you know, a Gemini, for example, this is their 8th house, and they have all this energy happening in a house of sudden unexpected events and facing fears and all this kind of stuff like that. So it really matters where it is in your chart, and also where your natal energy with these planets are. You know, if you have your Jupiter in a more constrictive sign to begin with, then all of this feels better to you. If you don't, and your Jupiter's across the way over here in Cancer, it doesn't feel that good to have all this restrictive stuff. So you're more separate from what's going on. It's not your natal tendency. So you're not necessarily diving into any sides or anything like that, because you're feeling separated from all of it. So it really does matter on your natal energy as far as how you're experiencing these things as well. So anyway, I did go off on a couple tangents here, but hopefully this was helpful for you. We'll definitely be doing a big video on the 11th or before the 11th for that new moon in Capricorn, happening at the very end of Capricorn. But, you know, take this time to nourish yourself, dip in some water, drink some water, please. Do some yin yoga, maybe something very relaxing, not so hard. Really, you know, offer yourself moisture, replenishment, kindness, care, and maybe even offer that to others around you as well, instead of this sort of, you know, more harsh paradigm we've had in our relationships recently. And if you are somewhere where the restrictions are being lifted and you have a chance to actually, you know, go have a coffee with a friend or take a walk on the beach or do whatever it is that you haven't been doing for, you know, for all these months, then please go treat yourself to that. And blessings on your full moon. We'll see you again soon. Namaste.